Substack Writer Salon. And I have with me today a legend in the literary scene. Actually, he's a legend in the podcast scene when it comes to authors and books and publishing. His name is Brad Listi. He's a novelist, a podcast host, and one of the most recognizable voices in the literary podcast world. He's the author of Be Brief and Tell Them Everything, and the LA Times selling novel Attention, Deficit Disorder. He's also the creator and host of the long-running podcast Other People with Brad Listi, where he interviewed hundreds of leading writers in deep, honest, and often unpredictable conversation. He's also the founder of Deep Dive, a platform offering in-depth writing courses, and he is known for his candid, thoughtful approach to the creative process. All right, Brad. Hi, and I see people already joining. I have like 5 people here. Hi, everyone. So excited to have Brad. We're going to talk about podcasts for authors and how to create your podcasts. All right, Brad, as I told you before we started, I'm really jealous. And jealousy is a negative energy. I have to work on myself, I know. But I am just because I also run a podcast and I've been running it for 4 years now. And I was just looking at the people that that you interviewed, and you actually interviewed one of the best probably authors in the world, the top selling authors, including George Sanders, Yuen Lee, Liz Moore, and others. How did you do that? What is your secret? How did you manage to get all of these people come on your podcast? What's your secret sauce?
I started 15 years ago,
Okay.
and there weren't a ton of literary interview shows, like not nearly as many as there are now. So I had that going for me. And then I reached out directly. I think I emailed George Saunders at Syracuse, if I'm remembering correctly. And he's really unpretentious. And, maybe it's gotten harder to book him now that he's become like sort of an icon at this point. But back then, he just emailed me back. I think he was my 100th guest. And he's pretty accessible. He's a pretty easygoing guy. And then I want to say I knew, like somebody like Roxane Gay, I kind of knew from internet lit scene. And I talked to her for her first book. So then it becomes easier to book people subsequently. And then I think the longer you're around, the more your show sort of registers with people. They have to see it about 50 times on social media before they, I think, maybe clock it as a thing. And maybe that's what my show has become. It's just kind of hung around long enough that people, or at least some people, think of it as like semi-legitimate.
Okay. So when you contact these authors, do you contact them on social media or do you go to their agents? Like what do you do and how do you find their agents?
Oh, my show, I get about, I would say between 50 and 75 requests a day from publicists, usually.
Okay.
Occasionally, authors will reach out to me directly, but I was just complaining. By the way, this is my second Substack Live in less than a week. I did my first one last week, and now I'm doing one this week. Am I going to just do a Substack Live every week with somebody? Is this what's going to happen to me?
Maybe. I don't know. I actually saw you last week on Substack, and that's why I invited you. So
yeah, I don't know. I feel this is a new thing for me, but
no, you're doing great. You're doing great.
I was complaining last week on Substack Live that the booking process for my show has become overwhelming and unwieldy, and I'm very disorganized with it. And it's impossible to accommodate, obviously, all of the requests that I get, but I'm also rethinking or like thinking that I should be rethinking the manner in which I book, just because there's a lot of demand. So what was your question? Like, how do I do it?
Yeah. Do you reach out to them on
No.
social media? Like, let's say big names like George Sanders or I don't know, like who's like let's say you want to have Stephen King on your show. Have you ever had Stephen King on your show?
I tried, but he was like, no. I mean, Stephen King's sort of like, I'll do NPR and I'll do the New York Times. I think that's maybe where he's at.
Okay.
Maybe he does podcasts. I don't think I've seen him on any, unless it's like a big institutional media concern. And he doesn't have to. Stephen King doesn't have to do anything. So
All right. Somebody like Frida McFadden, who recently revealed her true identity. And how would you reach her?
Probably through her publicist. But at this point, the publicists come to me. Like I rarely reach out to anybody anymore unless somebody
Okay.
contacts me. Occasionally, and then maybe if I have their contact info, I'll either email them or text them, or I'll reach out to a publicist and pitch it very occasionally, and then see what they say.
And how many episodes do you have so far in 15 years?
I mean, total episodes, I think, is upwards of 1,300, but author interviews, I think I'm at 1,030.
And I've been listening to your show, and you said you've been consistent for 15 years. Every week you post a show every Thursday for 15 years nonstop.
Well, no, the schedule has shifted and changed over the years, but in addition to having like decent timing and starting a long time ago, which is I think to my benefit, just because my show has had time to accrue an audience, and I got started at a time when the podcasting space was not completely oversaturated. So I had that going for me. And then the other thing is that I've been very consistent for 15 years. And I always call it feeding the stray cats. Like if you don't feed the stray cats are going to go to somebody else's house. So I have tried to sort of be there week after week, and I don't think I've missed maybe a few weeks in 15 years, but hardly any. So I think that's been beneficial. And right now, the way that the schedule goes is that a new author interview airs on Tuesdays. Every Tuesday is a new author interview. And then on Thursdays, I've been doing a pop culture series with my friend Mira Gonzalez. And that's just sort of a goof where Mira is much younger than I am. And so the whole conceit of the show is that she's sort of trying to guide me and teach me about pop culture. And we just sort of, try to have a laugh, which I need in this era. And then on Sundays, this year, I've been playing an archival episode. Once I crossed 1,000 author interviews, I was like, yeah, I should probably like re-air some golden oldies like once a week, because I feel like a lot of listeners who might be coming to the show wouldn't even know that this stuff exists.
Hmm.
Unless you sit there scrolling like, deep into the archive. So there's 3 episodes a week, 1 author interview, the pop culture show on Thursday, and then there's a flashback episode on Sundays.
Do you do this full time?
No, I mean, I'm doing lots of different things. So it's like trying to fit this in around all the other stuff I'm trying to do. And I wish I could do it full time. That would be my dream, would be to make a fortune in podcasting, but it's a 1%, 99% economy. I'm not in the 1%. I don't think any literary show is or could be in the 1%, unless I don't know, unless somebody's killing it in a way that I'm not aware of.
Hmm. Well, I can think of people like what's her name, Zibby Owens. Like she kind of created a whole empire from her podcast. Moms don't have time to read. She Joanna Penn, the creative Penn. I think these are some people who kind of killing it in the literary podcasting. Do you agree with
I
me
just
or
want to
no?
say, maybe. I don't
Okay.
know. I truly don't know. I don't listen to any literary podcasts. Like, I think I would probably throw myself off a bridge if I tried to. I'm just so inundated with literary podcasting on my own that when I go to listen to something, the last thing I want to listen to is a literary podcast. I want to listen to I don't know. I listen to sports podcasts and Buddhism podcasts.
Okay.
But I think that sometimes appearances of empire can be deceiving, is what I will say. And I want to say, I don't know. That's all I'm going to say. I could be wrong. Maybe there is an empire. I hope there is in the literary space, and I hope that it's reaching a ton of people and bringing people to books. But I think that when it comes to generating significant revenue from a podcast, you need to be getting tens of thousands of downloads per episode on a consistent basis, like many tens, to be in the echelon where the money is really flowing. But that's just my experience of it. And maybe people have a different experience of it. I think I'm decent at hosting a show, and I love hosting a show, and I love having conversations, and I've gotten decent at editing and mixing a show, like the bare bones basics of it. But in terms of like hammering away at the marketing part of it and going around and like pounding the table for my show on the internet and being on social media relentlessly, that part of it is maybe where I struggle. That part of it I don't like.
Hmm. So are you a one-man show? You don't have anyone to help you with this?
No. I mean, the thing is that like there have been people who have offered to intern for me, but like it never works out. Like you got to be able to pay people. I can't pay somebody, and I feel weird asking somebody to do this stuff for free. It's grunt work. I've always done all the grunt work for my show from the beginning. And, if I had the budget, I'd happily hire somebody to do like the editing and producing and booking. It would be ideal, but it's just not happening.
Mm. What if it's a catch-22 two in terms of maybe if you hire someone, you can make more money from your podcast, and then you can hire more people, and then you can grow. I mean,
Maybe.
sometimes you just have to take a leap of faith and just do it. And
Yeah, or you implode and you run out of money. I mean, it can go either way. I don't know.
well,
I think like it's a lot. It's a lot to ask somebody to do as like an unpaid intern. And in my experience is that unless you get somebody who's really earnest and dedicated and maybe like independently financed by like, the largesse of their parents or something, they can afford to do an unpaid internship. Maybe you get one of those unicorns, but usually people do it for like, a week and they're like, fuck this. Like, I'm not getting paid. And I don't blame them. I wouldn't, it's like, there's no point. I feel bad having an unpaid intern, so I don't have one. And,
what about people from like Fiverr? So, for example, for me, for my other podcast, I outsource the editing part. I don't do editing. I mean, I know how to do it, but it takes 1 hour of my time. I want
Yeah.
that work. So I outsource it, but I do the social media, and I'm planning when it looks like I'm the optimist here. When I scale, I'm gonna hire at least one person to do the social media, because that hour that I can pay that person, I can charge triple the time doing consulting work or another work. So from a
Yeah.
financial sense, for me at least, it makes more sense to outsource it.
Yeah, I mean,
Mm.
I've used like what is it called? Upwork. I've
Upward, yeah.
Fiverr. Like I've hired people that way to help me like run my various operations, and it can sometimes work. I mean, the editing part is interesting because I have fantasies of somebody like having a really good producer who does the edit and the back end and just like posts and stages episodes and does all of that. But the problem is that I like to have control of the content, and I like to have a creative control of the edit to fix things that I think need to be fixed. I would have to have a lot of trust. I think I have trust issues is what I'm trying to tell you, Natasha.
Okay.
I just would have trouble like outsourcing that, because what would happen is that I would outsource it and like theoretically save the time, but then I would probably find myself listening to every episode to make sure. And that gets weird when you start listening to your own podcast regularly. Though I sometimes do, just as like a quality control thing. But I think I would be extra invested on that level. So it would sort of defeat the purpose. I would lose the hour doing QC that I theoretically gained by outsourcing the edit. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think it's a mindset, which is like the MVP mindset, which is a minimum viable product. So you just have to trust the process and realize perfection is the enemy of the good. So sometimes you just have to ship it to MVP it like Silicon Valley products without worrying about it. And this is how you scale. This is how you become part of that.
That's what they say. That's what all the self-optimizer bros tell you.
Exactly.
You got to get that MVP.
Exactly.
You got to get that minimum viable product. You have to.
Exactly.
It's either hell yes or it's no. I mean, trust me,
Exactly.
I've absorbed all that stuff, and it's like, okay, I got to pump the brakes. I'm going to drive myself nuts. I think that you have to do it in a way that works for you, and that if you're going to try to be consistent in creating this kind of content. So far, I've been able to sort of manage it on my own,
Awesome.
but
That's my
it's a lot. What is that? What kind of dog you got?
She's annoying. She's half German Shepherd and then half
I
like
was gonna say, sounds
half
fierce.
Louis. She's very protective. She
What's her
and
name?
she Fiona, and she loves to come on my podcast somehow. Like she's the
My dog
background.
is my dog is back there in the corner.
Okay.
You can't really see her. She's not fierce, nor is she protective.
Okay. All right. So she's the background of all my podcasts. So the readers the listeners are okay with her so far. We'll see. The numbers say something differently. But anyways, all right. So you so why are you doing this? I mean, like I realize that you say I'm not making money. I'm spending a lot of time. I do it three
I am
times.
making money. I am making money, but I'm not making a lot of money.
Okay.
Like that, I mean, I wouldn't be doing this if it was a complete wash, but I'm just trying to tell you that, like, for people to make a podcast lucrative in the market as presently constituted, you have to be in like the 1% or even like the top half of 1%, as I understand it. And if you're not there, maybe you make some money, but it's not going to be lucrative until you enter the 1%, which is, I think, the same thing you could say for the economy writ large, as I understand it, which is poorly.
So why did you start the podcast in the first place? What was your mindset 15 years ago when you started it?
It was an experiment. I think I was encouraged to do it when I was editing my literary magazine, my online literary magazine, The Nervous Breakdown. We had been doing some podcast content, which was like people reading excerpts from their books, but then they were produced and they had kind of music and maybe some of them even had sound effects. And then it was like, there should be a literary interview series that we do and put it up on the site was, I think, the idea, if I'm remembering correctly. And so I started the Otherppl show with the idea that it would be this short-term thing. And I would just talk to a few authors and have these conversations. And I think I wanted to make a show that was more informal, at least at the outset, that was more informal than most literary content, where, literary people, I feel like, can take themselves pretty seriously sometimes. And the content that was created around literary people and literary content back in the day could be pretty dry and kind of boring for me anyway. And so I was like, I want to just talk to these authors as people because I know so many authors from my work as an editor and just being in book world for a long time. I know like how interesting and funny and inappropriate these people can be in conversation, like in private conversation. And so I wanted to try to create a space for that sort of maybe informality and that sort of exchange. And I think that was where it began. And then I found that I liked it. And almost immediately there was an audience. And I was hearing from people who were saying, oh, this is great. I love this. Where has this been? That sort of thing. And listen, you don't have to encourage me all that much. I was like, oh, something I'm doing, people like it. Like, I think that really affected me. I think I was like, okay, I'm delivering something that is filling a need and I enjoy it and it's fun. And so it just sort of grew from there. And
Oh,
now it's 15 years later.
so 15 years is a long time. How long do you plan to keep on doing this?
I don't know. It feels like week to week to me. It's been week to week for like 7 years. But it's a hard thing. I will say this, it's a hard thing to quit because I get to talk to such fascinating people, talented people, and I love these conversations. They like enrich my life and my mind first, and then I share it with the audience, and hopefully it does something similar for them. So it's just such a cool thing to have in my life, and I enjoy it so much, and I think I really like to build this library, like almost in like a obsessive way. Uh, I like the idea of these conversations sort of living online somewhere or living in the podcast space and finding people here and there, So I don't know. I don't know how long it'll go. It's been 15 years. Maybe it'll be 20. Maybe it'll be 30. Maybe it ends next week. I just don't know.
Okay, so how did that impact your brand and career as an author? Did it have any impact did it sell more books? Did it get you more opportunities? Like, what was the ROI on all that investment of time and money.
The ROI. Listen to these terms, the ROI.
Um, I listen to a lot of raw material, so that's why.
Is that what it is? Yeah. I don't think of
Mhm.
it in those terms. I mean, not much. Nothing's going to move book. Nobody knows what moves books. I think it's word of mouth. It's some mystical catch, like it's some mystical zeitgeisty thing where your book gets published and meets the moment that it is published in with a kind of cosmic precision. It obviously has to be well done. Uh, Otherwise, it's a mystery. If anybody knew how to sell books, they'd be a billionaire. You know, everyone's trying to figure out the code, and you can't really game it. You just have to make your work the best you can and do the best you can to get the word out, and then just let the cards fall. So, in terms of how my podcast has impacted book sales, like maybe a little bit, but nothing crazy. People might love my podcast and hate my books, or like my books and hate my podcast, you know? I don't think they're necessarily reciprocal in that way, though maybe they are, you know? It's kinda hard to imagine that if somebody liked my book, they would hate my show because my book is so much me. But maybe people it's like I think some people might be like, "Yeah, I can tolerate him in a book, but the podcast is maybe too much of him," or something. And, then I think too, if people out there are anything like me, you sort of listen to a show and you get into it for a while, and then you're sort of like, you know, I'm getting kind of tired of that guy. And then you stop listening for a while. And then eventually you're like, hey, I wonder what that guy's doing. I remember him. And then you listen and you're like, oh, I kind of liked him. You know, you kind of remember how you liked him and you come back for a while and then you get tired of him again. I think people do that with most shows, probably mine. And so I don't know. That's kind of a jumbled answer, but I don't think it has some huge like correlative impact on book sales. I don't know what it's done for my brand. Probably nothing terrible. Maybe there's like some sort of dilution. I have thought of that where like, you know, you're a podcaster and so you're therefore not as much of an author because you're the interviewer guy. But I don't know. Like, listen, everybody these days has a podcast or a Substack Live, and everybody, like I bemoan constantly, is turning themselves into a TV show suddenly. Like, that's something I'm resisting. I don't know. There's some stubborn part of me that's like, no, fuck this. I'm not doing this. But, you know, uh, I don't think it's that big of a deal anymore. I certainly don't care. I don't sit around like wringing my hands going like, oh, is the podcast weakening my brand as an author? Like, the less I think of myself as a brand, the happier I am. That's generally the way things go for me. Maybe to my detriment in some sort of like ROI way, but like I don't know if I can live like that. I'm just not wired for it. It makes me crazy. I don't like it.
Okay. um, so do you think every author should have a podcast?
No, no. Only do it if you want to. I mean, you know, if you like it, do it. If you don't like it, don't do it. And certainly don't guest on a podcast if you're not comfortable being a guest on a podcast. This does sometimes happen to me where there's like a person who agrees to be on a podcast, but then doesn't really want to be interviewed, doesn't really feel comfortable talking about themselves or being candid. And that's fine. You don't have to be that person, but don't go on a show. It's not going to help you that much.
Well, I mean, let's go back to the gurus. The marketing gurus tell you now if you want to market your book, going on a podcast tour is like one of the top things that you have to do. That yeah, it's like it's a no-brainer. You have to guest on podcasts to sell your books. Do
Maybe.
you agree
Yeah.
with that?
I mean, listen, I think in the aggregate, it can be helpful. It certainly doesn't hurt. But again, I think like, you know, back in the day, I used to do ad sales
Mhm.
for like the internet back when banner ads. Remember when banner ads were the thing? Maybe you're too young for that, but
No, no, no. I'm probably older than you. I just use dye. I just dye my
uh,
hair. That's the difference.
yeah, yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Every time I look at my, this is maybe why I don't do TV or we don't do
Okay. The
video.
only difference is I dye my hair. That's all.
I
Okay.
just look, I just look sleepy. I look tired.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, I think like in the aggregate, like back when you know, when I used to do banner ad sales, it was like, you know, you're trying to get click through and conversion, or you could expect to get click through and conversion like 1% of the time. And that was considered to be a successful
Yeah.
campaign.
Yeah.
So that would mean like if you got and you sold these things in what was it called? CTM. It was like cost per thousand impressions or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
And if you got 1% of 1,000, what is that? That's like 10,
yeah.
right? Or maybe not. Maybe it's even less than
1%
that.
of 1,000 is 10, yeah.
Yeah, but it might even be a fraction of 1%, in terms
Okay.
of how these things actually lead to conversion. So you go on a podcast and you get 50,000 downloads and you think to yourself, wow, this is great. I'm going to sell a bunch of books. No, you're not. You're not. Unless you are an incendiary guest, provocative and brilliant and like hilarious or whatever it is. But I think that like I tend to think of it in terms of like a really small conversion percentage per episode, even though lots of people listen and are interested to hear from you, they're not going to necessarily buy your book. Listen, you can go to you can have a reading at a bookstore, and there are people who will show up to your reading who won't buy your book at the reading, which feels like extra. It's almost like insult to injury. It's like, why did you just sit here and listen to me? You didn't even buy the book. But I've had people bemoan that happening to them. So I just think that like if you can book a podcast tour and you can reach a diversified audience, it's not the same people at each show. Let's say you get to 100,000 people hearing from you and you sell like and your conversion rate is like a 0.5%. Don't make me do math, but it won't be that many books, but it'll be some. And then in addition to that, I would think of it in terms of the long tail. I think that like people might listen to your episode and then buy your book like 2 years later. I think that often happens too. And then occasionally there will be a conversation or a person or a book that is just, sprinkled with that magic fairy dust and meets its moment really well. And the stars align and maybe even more people who listen buy it. But like, having said all of that, what I would say to people is like, think of podcasts as live events, even though they're not necessarily live.
Mm,
And if you host an event at a bookstore and it's in your hometown or in a place where you know lots of people or you went to college or something, or you're just fancy. Let's say you host an event at a bookstore and you're not like rare air author. If 100 people show up, you're loving it. Like 100 people showing up to your book event, you would probably be on cloud nine and the room would feel full and there would be a nice line for signing at the end and you would feel like it was a great success. If you go on a podcast that is very middling in its listenership, you are likely to get 500 people. Like that would be lower tier, to say the least. So even if you're going on a podcast that isn't like a super big deal, 500 people listening to you in that first month, seems like it would be worth your time. And if it goes beyond that, you're starting to fill up a theater or a stadium
mm,
even. And I don't think that's nothing. I know it's not nothing. And I just think that people have to have realistic expectations around how things are going to move the needle. I mean, I say this having learned the hard way. Like I remember when my book made the LA Times bestseller list, and I remember waking up and like, wasn't my wife saw it in the paper? This feels so analog, but I want to say we had like a hard copy of the paper or somebody told us and we went and checked it. And like, I literally spent about like 5 hours thinking that I was going to be rich. I had no idea. I was like, oh my God, like I made a bestseller list. And then I called my agent because I wanted to tell her. And of course, she was like much savvier in the ways of the actual business of things and knew how little it meant to the bottom line. And she was sort of like, there. Like, please come down off of your cloud. You're going to hurt yourself. Like, this is nice, but it's not like going to be a needle mover. And it didn't at all. So
mm,
I just think I'd rather go in eyes open than have that silly morning where I thought like I'd hit the jackpot and I just look like a fool in hindsight.
interesting. So I think I'm more optimistic than you in in general about life.
How long have you been podcasting? Give it 12 years. Come
Okay.
back and talk to me in 12 years.
All right, I will. Okay, but I think I want to ask you about um, monetization. You said that you actually make some money.
Yes.
You don't have to share the numbers, but how do you make money? What are your strategies?
advertising.
Like
You know,
sponsors? Like,
yeah.
just so
I
how do
sell
they?
ads on my show through a company called The Podglomerate, which is like a podcast, like an ad
Mhm.
network. So they handle the ads. Like I don't go out and solicit advertisers. I have somebody that there is a place where I have outsourced. Um,
Did they reach out
because
to you, or did you
yes,
do?
yes, they reached out to
Mhm.
me and then they brought
I
me in.
I I figured.
Yeah, and they brought me
Okay.
into their fold, and then they will, they deal with sponsors who make bids, and I don't understand their whole process, and then they basically come to me, and they're like, "Will you accept?" Like, I get to screen which advertisers I accept on my show, and these are and I should say this because my listeners might be listening, and they might wonder about this because there are 2 kinds of ads. There are, like, the host-read ads, and then there are what are called the programmatic ads, which are like the pre-recorded ads that third parties make on their own and then they play during my show. Um, there have been instances in the past where like a listener will be like, "Do you realize that there's like a gun manufacturer who's advertising on your show?" I don't I don't get to screen those. Or I've tried to say no to that kind of stuff, but some of these things worm their way through. These programmatic
Mm.
ads are kind of like the Wild West. But I do vet anybody for whom I'm gonna actually do an ad read in my own voice. And I'm pretty permissive, like, I need the money, like, I'll do anything as long as it's not, like, some like a gun manufacturer or, like, some awful entity that I feel like is really exploiting its workers or being just evil, but I don't know. That's kind of one source, and then I have a book club, which I've been running for about 15 years, which is another source of revenue. And then I started Deep Dive, which is sort of a spin-off of the podcast to try to deliver educational content. And, I'm just trying to think of ways to grow it in a manner that is also somewhat manageable. And I'm
Hmm.
having like mixed results, like in terms of how manageable it is. It's so much work to do all these things. And there's always something else you're supposed to be doing, which is like, oh, you're not doing video?
Yeah,
You're not on TikTok?
I
You're
wanna
not
ask
on
you
yeah.
about that.
And I start to get
FOMO?
angry.
Not
No,
FOMO?
no the
Okay,
opposite of FOMO, just like leave me alone. Like
okay,
the
okay.
goalposts are always moving. And there are always quote unquote experts who are there to sort of work that nerve and to try to tell you that you're not doing enough or that you need to switch to this platform. And, it becomes like a wild goose chase. And I'm suspicious of these people after a while. I think a lot of them are con artists who are trying to make money off of people's anxiety. That's what I think, but I
Hmm.
could be wrong.
Okay. So you mentioned video. So I was in Florida for a conference in January, and the conference is called Podfest, and it's for podcasters. And the main takeaway I got from it is video, 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 video. That
Yeah.
everyone is all to video. So
Not
I
me.
see,
Not
I
me.
see you shaking your head. Why not?
No.
Like, cause
Because
this is video. Like this,
I know.
this is
I'll do
gonna
that.
be on
Listen,
video.
great.
Yeah.
If somebody invites me to guest on something and they want to do video, that's their business. But I got
Okay.
into this. I love audio. I like the intimacy of having earbuds in and like walking my dog and listening to a conversation unfold. I think there's something insidious and weird about these algorithms incentivizing everybody to turn themselves into TV shows. What kind of hell are we living in where everybody has a fucking TV show? That drives me crazy. It drives me crazy. I think like we don't need another TV show. I don't need another talking head on my Instagram feed. That's just me. I don't want to be that. I'd rather be something that people can turn on while they're in their car, or they can turn on while they're walking their dog, or they're on the treadmill, or they're just like lying in bed trying to fall asleep and just wanting to have some other voice in their head aside from their own. I really love audio and I love audio interviews. And I resent the way these market forces and these people try to tell everybody that they've got to keep telling people that they've got to do this and then this and then this. And it's like dangling a carrot in front of people. And the payoff, I don't think is there 99% of the time. And I think that sucks. And I think there should be a space for audio. I mean, come on, if there's a space for people who like to read books, then there's certainly going to be space for people who like to listen to podcasts and not watch them. I've never watched a podcast in my life. I don't want to watch a podcast. I want to listen to it. But maybe like younger generations who are more accustomed to the constant, YouTube short of it all will see it differently. But so far, I'm just gonna hold on.
But do you feel like you're kind of resisting it, like when the TV came and people wanted to stick to radio, and they said, no,
Radio has never gone away.
exactly, and
Radio never went
so
away.
that's my point is, and I'm playing the devil's advocate here because I have to, is that what happens if you just do only audio, you're alienating some people who prefer video. And I'm gonna tell you, and I'm not even millennial, I'm a Gen X, so like I'm close to boomer age, right? So I would, when I cook, I would not listen to a podcast. I would watch a podcast because I would have my iPad and I would see Joe Rogan or whatever while chopping. I like to watch it rather than listen to it because it's more entertaining, especially when I do something I don't like that much to do every day, which is cook, making dinner. Having an iPad for a video to listen to, it's for me is more entertaining. But if I walk my dog, yeah, I will switch to audio. So I switch the medium based on where I am. And if I insist no audio, you're gonna lose, let's say, the moms who are making dinner. Maybe you don't care about the moms that are making dinner, but
I care about them. I care about the moms
the
deeply.
moms, but the moms who are making dinner are the one who read, are the one who go to your book club, are the one who. So you're like alienating because you think it's you're being purist, and sometimes being purist might not work to your own benefit. So that's my share.
Yeah, I get that, and I'm fine with it. Like, I think I'm just stubborn. Like, Terry Gross, I don't think is out there making videos. Is she? Maybe she is, but I just feel like I'm going to be for the people who like to listen to podcasts. And maybe, like, you know what, maybe down the road, you never say never, maybe down the road, I'll just finally be like, okay, I guess this is the world we're in. And I've got 3 people listening because everybody is just slack-jawed, staring at a screen all day, which, by the way, I'm raising children and it's terrifying to me. All these people constantly looking into their screens. It's a terrible way to exist, constantly watching video and scrolling. And I don't think it's good for people. I think it makes people unhappy and hurts their brains, like it numbs their brains. And I'm willing to die on that hill. And conversely, I think listening to a really good podcast interview can have the kind of depth charge and connectivity that reading a really good book can have at its
Right.
very best. And maybe people can get the same thing, like watching this. Hopefully people at home are experiencing that depth charge right now, just watching me just look wrinkled and tired and cranky. But I don't know. I guess I just love audio. That's why I started doing this. Audio existed before TV. Audio existed when TV came online. Audio existed when the internet came online. Audio continues to exist. It's not like audio went away. It's just that the algorithms are incentivizing people to make video because video is stickier. It's more likely to make people stay on platform and to make these social media companies money. So they don't want audio on Instagram. They want video. They don't want audio on Substack. They want video because video is a visual medium and it catches people's eyes and people stop and Substack makes money. But the people creating the video, I'm suspicious about how much they're going to see in terms of remuneration. Maybe people who become really popular will see it, but everybody else is just a sucker. That's what I think.
So since I'm one of those suckers, I'm gonna I'm gonna tell
But
you.
maybe it'll all work out. I mean, listen, I got to put an asterisk. I'm trying to be a good guest and to kind of say what I think
No,
in
no,
real
this is
time.
fun. This is fun.
But yeah, but what I will say is that there should be an asterisk next to me at all times. I wish you could maybe put this on the bottom of the screen here, just with an asterisk just says, he could be wrong.
Okay.
It happens a lot.
Well, okay. So I'm gonna say one thing and we're gonna move on. But another thing is video is important is because we live in an AI world where trust is really low. And if I want to trust a person, I want to see them on video, because now AI can produce audio easily. I've heard podcasts where like one AI talking to the other AI. I'm not gonna listen to that, but especially if I go live, people are gonna see me. They're gonna hear my accent. They're gonna see my gray hair. They're gonna see the mole on my face. They know I am real, right? And
Have a mole on your face?
yeah, it's right. It's right. I was just saying.
You have beautiful skin. I've been envying your skin. We've been
Okay.
talking.
Thank you. I'm probably older than you, by the way.
You look younger. You look younger, though. That's all that matters in this age of
Nine-
video.
1976.
Oh, I'm 75. See, I am older than you.
Ah, come on. All right. So, uh, so I'm just saying that it's now we have to go on video because the trust is going down with AI. They're gonna tell, he just uses an AI clone for his voice. La la la.
Listen,
So
listen, listen. Anybody who listens to my show for any period of time who thinks that I would ever use an AI clone to make my show is high. Like people know, I think people who listen to my show know that that would never happen. I'm not worried about that. And like, again, what a hellish reality we live in
it
where we
is what
have
it
to
is.
worry about it is what it is.
It
But
is
like,
what it is.
but you got to resist it is what I think. Fuck that. I'm not doing that. And I think people who are just like, well, this is just the world we live in. Don't bow at the altar of Sam Altman and these fucking people who just want to they want to quote, change the world and they want to be disruptors. All that is just euphemisms. Those are just euphemisms for make a fuck ton of money. They want to be billionaires. That's what they want to be. They don't care about humanity. That's how I feel. And maybe I'm wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong. But 9 times out of 10, these tech bros and tech girls who work for these disruptor companies that get killer ROI or whatever, and who try to couch what they're doing in these really kind of like fluffy humanistic terms are being disingenuous. That's what I think.
Okay, I respect that. All right. Another thing, I am gonna switch completely. Hopefully that won't piss you off. But
I'm not angry. I'm not angry at you. I hope you understand this.
yeah,
I'm
I know.
just trying to be a good guest. This is the kind of guest that I would want, is somebody who's just talking and telling me what they actually think without calculating first.
Okay, since we're like the same age, so all right, I'm gonna talk about tech tools and your tech stack. What are you using to create your podcast? If I want to say and tell people I want to create a podcast from my bedroom, what would you tell them to do?
Well, I would say, first of all, there's a lot of different ways to do it these days, increasingly more. There's a million platforms. They all work just fine. It's not really the end all be all to pick like the quote unquote right one. I use Riverside. And what I will say, and again, I also have like a very narrow lane of very mild expertise when it comes to tech stuff. I'm not typically good at this kind of thing, but I've just learned over the years I found a way and a process that works. I use Riverside. It's worked fine. I like that it stores the audio and video locally in the cache, like in it's only on Chrome. You have to have Chrome to use Riverside. But as I understand it, as you're recording, the audio and the video is uploaded to the cache, the Google Chrome cache of each individual participant in the conversation, which means that the quality of the audio is not contingent upon the quality of the Wi-Fi. I don't use Wi-Fi because I do this all the time. So I actually have a hardline internet in my office so that I can't stand listening to a show where there are those dips where the voice gets warbled and somebody cuts out. And so Riverside is excellent at mitigating against that because the audio quality and the video quality, if you choose to use it, is not contingent upon the person's Wi-Fi signal. And that has proven to be very useful to me in a handful of instances in particular where there are some real glitches in the exchange. Maybe like I'm thinking of authors who are overseas, like it can sometimes be more of an issue. But then you get the final audio from Riverside and it's pristine. There are no warbles or glitches. And I'm very finicky, like increasingly. I get finickier about audio every day that I do this. And I insist that my show sound really good. I can't tolerate audio glitches because I want the body of work to be professional, but I also want to make sure that I'm representing my guests professionally. I don't want to create a shitty episode and send it out into the world and it just kind of sounds bad. I did plenty of that in the early years of the show. So I
Remember
got that out of
MVP?
yeah. I mean that was my MVP. Those were my MVP years. But
Okay.
it was a case of my own incompetence when it came to audio production, coupled with the fact that the technology itself wasn't maybe where it is today. Like, Riverside didn't exist when I started. There were other platforms, but they've gotten a lot more sophisticated and user friendly, I think.
So you never use the video option where you take those video clips and put them on social media to promote?
Every once in a while. But I mean, that's another layer of work. This is another thing about it that aggravates me so much is they're like, you got to do this, 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 and this. It's going to take you another 6 hours of your life or whatever it is. It's just more time. It's more energy with the maybe like the payoff of a potential or the promise of a potential payoff down the road. Maybe it's always this. And I'm just working so hard to read the books and do the prep, conduct the interview well, do the post-production, get the post staged. The part of it that I hate is the part of it where you go out and you're like the music man trying to sort of rally people to the cause on Instagram. The less time I'm on Instagram, the happier I am. I don't want to make YouTube shorts. I just don't want to. And maybe I'm just stubborn. I know, and everyone's like, you're not making YouTube shorts? Like, your show's losing listeners, bro. And it's like, maybe. I don't know for sure.
So how do you discover a podcast? So for me, how I listen to a podcast is, you know, I scroll. I try not to scroll, but I scroll on Instagram because I try to promote my business on all these social media platforms. And if I see a clip I like, let's say a diary of a CEO, like one of my favorite podcasts, it's like, I immediately go to Spotify, I add it, I save it, and when I go walk to my dog, I listen to it. I would
Yeah.
not have discovered it if I scrolled through Spotify because nobody scrolls through Spotify. So most of the podcasts that I discovered and I listened to and I saved and I shared are because I saw clips on social media, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube Shorts, or even Facebook, and or even people sharing it via text or WhatsApp or whatever. Um, I think that's how people are discovering podcasts. Whether we like it or not is, if you can't beat them, you'll have to join them eventually.
That's what they want you to believe, don't they? Like,
I
you
know.
just have to kneel before Sam
Yeah,
or
you
whatever.
gotta
But,
join the Matrix.
yeah. But I think you're right. I do think and I have had this conversation with myself where if I am going to uh, compromise at all, it would be in sharing clips and letting that be a discoverable thing for people that would maybe bring people to the show.
Correct.
I just wish I could push a button and it would all just go out.
Actually, you can. It's very easy. It's very
Good.
easy. I mean, I don't spend more than 2 minutes
Goes to where? To YouTube, or does it go to everywhere?
YouTube
It just
Shorts,
goes.
TikTok.
You just push the everywhere button and it goes to everywhere?
Exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
thank God.
So it goes to YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Substack, LinkedIn, everywhere. And
This is
well, I
all
mean,
right.
it's a brave new word, my friend.
I'm gonna have to start moisturizing more. I gotta get my skincare if I'm gonna be putting myself out there.
But all right. Okay. So I noticed you're on Patreon. How is that working for you?
I need to be better. Again, that's the part of it. Like, the last thing in the world I want to do is ask people to support me on Patreon. I just want to light myself on fire every time I say that. But there's got to be a way. I like to have it open in case there are people who are inspired to support the show. And it's not nothing, that's another little stream of revenue. It's not much, but it's fine. It buys me some meals or whatever. But yeah, that's one of those things. That's one of my to-dos. Make your Patreon more robust. And I think I need to create more of a VIP experience as I understand it.
Yeah.
So that I'm not just asking people to support the show. I'm actually
Correct.
offering them something. But again, like that's going to take me hours to do. And I don't know. I'll get around to it eventually, you know.
But all of your problems will be solved. Let's say 99% of them if you just hire a VA. And if you hire a VA from and they're really good, like let's say from the Philippines, because they speak really good English, they're very tech savvy. They don't charge much per an hourly rate, and there are companies that can help you find vetted VAs, and all of these problems will be solved. Just
You
hire,
think?
just yeah, I think so. Like 99% of your problems.
And by the way, for people listening, a VA is a virtual assistant.
I'm sure they know.
It's not it's not Veterans Affairs, if anybody out there.
Okay.
But, I get it. Like, you're very, like, savvy in the way of, like, the business, lingo. I get it. I read that stuff too. But it's like virtual assistants, the 4-hour work week. Uh, I'm like a sucker for all that stuff, but I also, like, resent it because I think these people are scamming a lot of us. That's what I think, but there's some
Mm.
truth in it. I think that a VA might be my answer. I don't know. Somebody could set up my Patreon. It would be nice. I think I looked into it a little bit, and I was worried because there's not a way to give someone access to your Patreon at a lower tier than owner. Like, you just sort of have to give them your password. And so I get a little bit skittish about just handing my password out to some person
I
in the
mean, you don't
Philippines.
have to give them Patreon, but they can handle all your social media. They can handle the booking for you. They can like all the things that you complain about. These will be
Which
fine.
which are voluminous, as it turns out.
Exactly. Exactly. I noticed. Okay. So, okay. So, do you read all the books of the people that you interview on your show?
Yes.
So you actually read over 1,000 books, and you
No, no,
read.
no, back in the day, I didn't. That changed, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. I think when I first started the show and for the early iteration of the show, it was really like in my head, I was like, I just wanna talk to them as people. I'd never heard a show where authors just sort of shot the shit and talked candidly about themselves and their lives, and I think my idea, and I'm not entirely divorced from this perspective, is that if somebody is an interesting interview in that way, that conversation is every bit as likely to sell their book to my audience
Mhm.
than some sort of like nuanced academic-ish conversation about the contents of the book. And what I will always say is that, like, maybe the core challenge of making book media interesting is the fact that a huge percentage, I think probably an overwhelming majority of people who listen to an episode haven't read the book yet. That's my guess. I don't have any way of really verifying that, but I don't think having a consistent podcast audience that the people who are listening to my show are reading every single book and then coming to my show and listening to the author. That doesn't make any sense. I think that you're getting a majority of people who haven't read but are just interested in hearing two people talk and maybe learning about this author. And, there's lots of writers in my audience who want to glean like writerly wisdom from the conversation. And then there is maybe that smaller percentage of people who have read the book. So the core challenge is that if that is the way things are sorted out in terms of audience, then as a host, I've got to try to make the episode interesting to both groups. And there's nothing in my view anyway, there's nothing more boring than listening to two people talk about a book that I haven't read.
Mm.
Unless maybe it's like a memoir and it's very like sensational or it's like true crimey. It's like a narrative that I can sort of enter into. But if I'm listening to two people talk about a novel, I think there are ways, and I've tried to do this, to talk about it in a manner that is compelling and create some accessibility even for the people who have not read. But I think for people who have not read, it's more likely that the author's personal story, how they came up as an artist, struggles that they had, challenges that they overcame, all the publication backstory, stories of addiction, bad breakups, all that kind of stuff is maybe juicier and easier for people to grab onto. And if you just get into a really book nerdy, academic-ish discussion of a book, you're going to please a certain subset of the audience. But I think in that case, you're really damning yourself to a very small niche. Uh,
So do you actually read one book a week?
More sometimes, but I want to say, as an addendum to what I just said, that the authors themselves, like this is what I think I sort of evolved toward over the years of the show. They obviously want you to engage with their work, and that's as it should be. Um, and I think that the conversations that I've had in recent years very much deal with the book. And I want to try to honor the authors and the work that they've done and to just honor literature, like that's the core of this entire project. So the show in its format has evolved to deal more with the book over the years, but I'm trying to sort of do both. I'm
Mm.
trying to get into the personal stuff and I'm trying to deal with the book so that I can please as many people as possible and to make the author feel seen and respected for the work that they've done.
How do you read so many books?
Audiobooks at like 2.5 speed.
Okay,
So it's,
2.5. That's
I
pretty
mean,
fast.
as fast as I can tolerate. And I walk my dog in the morning and I'm just sort of mainlining a book with like this rigid facial expression where I'm trying so hard to focus, but it's the only way I can do it. Like I'm too slow of a reader on paper
Mm,
to be able
mm.
to manage the churn, but it's
Aud-
not the
uh,
ideal way, but it's the way
Aud-
that I have to do it.
Audible or Spotify or Libby, or all of them?
Oh, all of them. I mean,
Okay.
NetGalley, Google Play, Spotify, Audible, Libro, audiblebooks.com. I have all the apps.
Okay. Two quick questions because I have to go pick up my son. See, first one is you mentioned book club. What? How are you monetizing? Because I have a book club and it's basically more of a wine club for the ladies. But how are you monetizing your book club? I am on Fable. I mean, but
People
what
pay. There's a monthly fee for the book club, and people
on
pay
what
to.
on Fable or how do you monetize it?
No, it's PayPal. People sign up for a subscription, and then the books
And
go out.
what do you offer them?
The book, and then an interview with the author. And there's not
Ah,
like there's a lot of churn with the book club. So over the years, there's been like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. If they were all still members, I'd be loving it. But
ah,
people join and then they go away and then they come back, and so it creates like a revenue stream.
okay,
Um,
okay.
so
Another one, and then I wanna go read some of the comments and the questions because they're funny. One
cheer up, Fred. Listen, this could just be Monday morning, guys. Maybe you're just catching me on a day where I'm just grumpy and
okay,
caffeinated.
okay, but Substack, why aren't you putting your podcasts on Substack?
I don't know. This is the thing. Another platform I got to put it on. Is that what I got to
VA.
do?
Yes, if you have a VA, like for me, I have two podcasts on Substack, not one,
Who's
two.
your VA? What's their name?
Me, I have my VA,
Oh,
but
you're your own VA.
yeah, no. For now, no. I have somebody who does the production for my podcast, but he's not a VA. He's like the producer, and I found him on Fiverr. He's great. He's from Sri Lanka. Been with him for 4 years. At first, I did not even know if he was a man or a woman, and I didn't care because the production was so good. And he's great, amazing. I didn't ask for a resume. I didn't ask for anything. I looked. Tried him once, great. That's it. And I've been with him for 4 years. It's a trust economy rather than like, show me your PhD from the podcasting academy, whatever. But so yeah, I mean you're gonna do that. Okay, so I'm gonna go quickly through the comments before I leave my son
Yeah.
waiting outside.
Yeah.
Okay, so Holly says, love that that your work is for you and you allow it to be whatever it's meant to be. Look, you have a fan. You have a new fan here.
Thank you,
All right.
Holly.
Carol Tame says, stick to what you do best. And Holly also says, both of you look great. Thank you, Holly.
Thank you, Holly. I like Holly.
I know, she's just giving you all of these compliments. Carl Tame says, cheer up, Brad. Man, you complain more than I do. You do. You complain.
This is my great talent. I'm a prodigy.
Okay. All right. So Brad, before we leave, how can people reach you? How can they buy your books, listen to your podcast? So this is your time to do your shameless plug. So the floor is yours.
All right. So my podcast is called Other People, but it's spelled really annoyingly. It's Other PPL is the way that you spell my podcast. So Other PPL, it's available wherever podcasts are available. The website is otherppl.com. My website is bradlisti.com. The show is on Instagram and Blue Sky, and I have a Substack. So you can follow me here on Substack. And I really got to put my podcast on Substack. You can do that.
Yeah. You know what I do is, so I hosted on Buzzsprout, the first one. This one is completely on Substack, but the other one where I only talk to authors is on Buzzsprout. But Buzzsprout only allows you to write show notes. So what I do is I take the script and then I turn the script into a whole blog post or a whole post. And then I put it on podcast and I send it as a newsletter. And sometimes, and I also upload the audio natively on Substack. So I kind of hosted, and I don't do on Substack. And sometimes some episodes double or triple the amount of downloads I get on Buzzsprout. So if I want
Can
to,
I ask you a question? Are the
yeah,
analytics that you get from Substack independent of the analytics that you get from your
correct.
other? Okay, so
Correct.
they're their own entity. They're their own.
Correct. Because I re-upload, so I take the edited file that my buddy in Sri Lanka sends me and I upload it on Buzzsprout. And then I look at the analytics and see, and I do the marketing and the shorts and blah, and then I look at, let's say in a week, in a month, what were like the top ones and what are the ones that I think would do really well on Substack. I take them, I repurpose them into a post, and then I send it to my 5,000 subscribers on Substack. And then I give them the option to either listen within the native Substack or I put links to Buzzsprout and YouTube or whatever. But they have the options. So, but if they listen on, let's say, Spotify, because I embed it, it will go to Buzzsprout. But if they listen within the embedded native Substack player, it will go to Substack. And this is how the analytics work. But nobody told me this. I kind of MacGyvered it in a way, and and it worked. So, and nobody knows what they're doing. We're just figuring it out as we go. And this is kind of became a process that I do. I look at the best one and I repurpose them and put them on Substack. Meanwhile, this one, which is this is only for people on Substack, and it's not only for authors. We talk about Substack growth, whatever. That's hosted natively on Substack, and I also connected to the other players, and all the analytics are within Substack. The other are just kind of divided, but maybe it's not the best strategy, but it works, and I get audience from different platforms.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll try that. Maybe put my podcast on Substack. I've noticed there's a podcast option, but I just wish it happened. I wish it happened automatically.
Happy to help you pro bono.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm not going to have to pay for this.
Listen. Your friend Holly has a comment. If it were not for Substack, I would not have stumbled upon you both. I'm newer to exploring the author world and grateful you're both on here. Okay, I will shut up now. No, Holly, you've been great. Stay.
Yeah. Keep talking, Holly.
You're talking. Okay, you made him less cranky, so that's good. All right.
I do notice though that Substack is where a lot of writers are. It feels pure in terms of like my feed. My feed feels very literary and kind and bookish, and I don't know. Maybe
and there's lots of cranky. There's lots of cranky authors, so you'll find your tribe. Like you're
yeah. Right at home.
Exactly. So thank you very much, Brad. This has been really fun, and let's stay in touch. And for anyone who joined us today, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Writer Substack Salon. And until we meet again, bye.
Thanks,
thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.